Hey everyone, it's Mr. Pierce here. I am recording a tutorial video for a bot that I've recently created and launched. It's currently in 3 Discords, not including any of the test servers that it's in. Chaos Riders, Imp Gaming, it's home, and it's in another Discord. Somebody asked me for it. I'm actually not in that Discord, so I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. But yes, it's being used in 3 Discords currently in, I guess, beta. I'm not exactly sure how far I'm going to take this thing, but this is going to be the first of several tutorial videos on how to use the bot. It can be a little complex and overwhelming when you first start in comparison to some of the other stuff, but I've tried to make everything as simple as possible once you get the rhythm down of how I set everything up. A lot of the stuff is pretty consistent as to how to operate it. So the first thing that we're going to go over is you want to enable developer mode in your user settings. It's in user settings, advanced developer mode. So that user settings is this cogwheel down in the bottom left for anybody who's not familiar with that. Click on that, user settings right here. And then we're going to go and we're going to look through the list here to advanced. It's a little further towards the bottom. Click on that. And you get a little toggle right here. Toggle that over so that it's green. Its default is off, on. Okay, we're going to close out of that. Once you've toggled that over, you're good to go. So the you can ignore this right here, make trial. This is I'm in Imp Gaming right now, and this is the old trial bot. I haven't updated this yet for my bot. Actually, right here is the information for my bot. So I lied. I'm sorry. I did update this for my bot. I just have both bots still, so I haven't updated it to exclude the other bot yet. Some people are still comfortable using Noldo bot, which is a decent bot. I was mostly just updating it because there were a few things that I wanted to, a few features that I wanted in addition to that. So this bot's a little more advanced in regard to what you can do with the rosters once you have them. So just to get a visual of the roster, we're going to go over to Chaos Riders, where I actually have one open right here. This is what the roster looks like. It's Mr. Trialmaster is the default name. This is what it looks like when people are signed up. The roster is essentially blank when we first start out. So it gives you a little bit of recommended gear here for your support roles. That's going to be updated as well. This changes with each update and every nerf or patch or whatever the case may be. This is just a general reference of potential gear based off of at whatever time it was updated, whatever the patch was, whatever gear was in, so to speak, and it's meant to be as universal as possible. So you will definitely get raid leads that are suggesting other things, might even tell you that this is completely bonkers and whatever. Again, this is just a suggestion for those people that don't know how to optimize or don't want to optimize, whatever the case may be. They can just say, hey, use that gear, or don't, whatever, it's there. Add-ons, useful add-ons, this pretty much never changes unless some new add-ons come out. And I'm also open to suggestions, so anybody using the bot is always welcome to give me some advice on what they think their gear optimization should be. I'll run that gear past a couple of other guildies in some of the more advanced guilds that I'm in, and see if it's viable, and throw it in the mix. I'm happy to do that. So some of the features of this here, and the reason for a developer mode, as we just went over, is the ability to right-click on a message and copy its ID. So we just did that. We copy Control V. This is the ID, the message ID for this particular roster, right? And we're going to be using these IDs throughout the use of this bot, not just for the roster commands, but for some other commands that we'll go over in some future videos. So we're going to go over here to the test server. It's Mr. Pierce's test server here, and you can see here I was already messing with some other commands here where I test some stuff out. So we'll start up at the top here. Here is a sample of the error code that you'll get if you try to launch this trial, if you do it wrong, essentially. So the format is a roster, trial, date, time, in the description, which is optional. So anytime you see in the bot these brackets here, I don't know their proper name, they're required arguments within the bot. And anytime you see this bracket over here, this means that whatever's inside the bracket is optional. Now, you obviously don't have to put those in as parameters, but the idea here is that every space that's here moves you to the next section of the code. So exclamation point roster, that's the command, right? Space. the trial acronym. And you can see here, these are all the acronyms that are viable when you're making your trial. NKA, VKA, most of the time, not much changes. The VCR, I believe, is the only one that really changes because it gives you the extra tank. But for the most part, the rosters all just look like this. There's no lanes, there's no melee, there's no nothing. This is a open roster type of format. And the idea behind this is just to get people to sign up. And then you manually launch a roster, which I'll go over that as well, to edit, modify, whatever the case may be. So right now, we're just going to go over launching a basic roster. So if you just do exclamation point, roster, space, whatever trial you want. I like to just default to VSS. And that's the roster you want, right? So you go and you try to send that. Boom. You're going to get, please enter a date and a time using this format, right? You get a nice short one. See how up here we got this nice long error code? This is if you like completely jack up a command. You get the nice long one. So that comes from like exclamation point roster. And I don't know, I just made something up. VGG. That doesn't make any sense, right? That's non-existent. That's when you get this full error code that gives you all the information you need on how to properly launch this command. If you've gotten past that, it's assumed that you know what you're doing because you started the command out correctly, but you might have just missed something or whatever the case may be. So it's telling us here, this is the original error code, right? Please enter a date and a time using this format. Notice how it does not say enter a description. The description is optional. See how we went over in the brackets here? Optional description. So date. It's important to remember that spaces move you over to the next part of the command, right? So with no spaces, use whatever date format you're using. We generally like to use, let's say 02 2nd of December of 2021, right? That's the general format. But let's say you're running this trial weekly, right? So you want to run it every Thursday. So Thursdays, right? Let's say you're running it 2 days a week because it's a prog or whatever the case may be. Thursdays and say Saturdays, right? Like this. No spaces. We're just going to do a little slash, right? So let's say we're running Thursday, Saturdays, right? Now the time, okay? Say 9 to 11 p.m., right? We don't need to write Eastern, Pacific, all that stuff. We're going to, I'll go over immediately after launching this, setting the time zone up, but you have a set time zone in your Discord with this bot, and it'll utilize that for your rosters and stuff. It'll show up after here. So space moves you right on to the next thing, right? 9 to 11 p.m. or just 9 p.m. if you're not going to run full 2 hours. You just want to do 9 p.m. and you're going to run the run. You don't know how long it's going to be, whatever, right? That's all that's required. So that last space puts you into the description. Anything and everything that you say up to 200, or I think it's up to 1,056 characters total, including what you've already typed, is part of the description, right? So this is an example of a description, period. Rule 1, informational piece 2, whatever. I like to format my stuff out so when it shows up at the top of the roster, it looks purty. All right, so yeah, can't apparently spell at all. So there we go. Boom. All right, so here's your roster, right? So remember, Thursdays and Saturdays. If you did a space, right? Let's say you didn't put the slash and you put a space. It would say Thursdays here, and it would say Saturdays here, Pacific Standard. So this is the time zone that I was just using when I sampled it. But like, check this out. So exclamation point set time zone, right? We're gonna do Eastern. Time zone has been changed to Eastern. Next roster that launches, we'll say Eastern there instead, okay? And exclamation point time zone is going to display whatever the current time zone is, okay? And it automatically defaults whatever you put into all caps. So 9 to 11 Pacific Standard, right? This is a description, right? So remember we typed in this is an example description right at the end of our code, but then I shift entered and I did dash line. So any formatting that you put in the code will show up in the description exactly how you put it. Here's the roster. So we're going to react with healer. Boom. Now, there's no backup roles. Notice that? There's no backup emojis. You can't sign up as backup. The reason for this is if somebody slotted as a backup position, right, which it'll do automatically. Let's say we had another healer sign up right here, and then I signed up as a healer. it would put me as backup, right? Because I'd be the third healer. If one of these people minus X'd by removing their reaction, takes you off the roster, they would automatically be moved from here to the healer spot, and then they will get a DM that tells them that they were moved and that they've been slotted, and to check out the roster and make sure that they're on time. Okay, so that's how the rostering signs up. So we just react, and we're on the roster. That's it. Boom, and then it tells everybody here we have 2 tank slots, we have 2 healer slots, and we have 8 DPS slots, and that's how many spots are taken out of how many. Just a little piece of information in case you don't feel like counting or looking down. Whatever, it's extra. Here's the gear that we talked about before. Here's the useful add-ons, and yeah, so that's the basic gist of the roster. Now, let's say you run the run, right? It's a weekly run. You want it to be open every week. You want new people to sign up, even the same people to sign up, but you want the option. So you're not going to carry the roster over week to week because it's not a prog, right? It's just an open roster that you're going to reset. So at the end of every week, every Thursday, Saturday, right? You're running this weekly, or every Thursday, let's say it's Thursdays. You go and you react to it. You have to be the person who launched the roster in order to do this, right? So, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Why is that not working? Oh, reactions. Okay. Wastebasket. Boom. You click the wastebasket. You react with the wastebasket. It resets the emojis, and it clears everybody who's rostered off of the roster, right? Now, let's say people are signed up for this roster, right? And you want to give those people that signed up this week priority next week, right? So you want to give them a little bit of a head start, so to speak. So before, we ping roles. We say, hey, at whatever tier 2 DPS, tier 3, whatever your roles are, whoever you're pinging to sign up for the roles. Maybe we won't ping them the day of the roster, right? So if we run it on a Thursday and we want to give people a chance to sign up, maybe we'll launch the pings the next day, right? So we'll check on it. But we want to give them notice that the roster's been reset. So we have a ping command for any and anything that you want to, right? So ! ping roster, right? And this is where the developer mode comes in. We copy ID, we put it in here, right? It's always going to be, anytime this ID is needed, it's always going to be whatever the command launch is, right? So in this case, it's ping roster. Then it's the message ID. So anywhere you see this, right here, message ID, is representative of this. This is the number right here, message ID. Okay? So, command, message ID, right? We're pinging the roster. Now, the ping roster command utilizes positions, right? So, what we have for the ping roster command in regard to positions is we have roster and rostered. They're the same thing, right? It's just in case whatever, so roster. That's just the roster. That's going to be the first emojis right there. The first, everything from here up. That's roster or rostered, right? Same thing. Whoever's rostered, whoever's on the roster. That's who you're pinging. If anybody's in the backup positions because something's full, they will not get tagged in this message that you're about to create, right? Now, if you don't want to ping these guys, if you just want to, hey, backup roles, we're getting started, we're full, you no longer need to stand by, whatever. I don't know in what circumstances you would ever need to just ping the backup roles, but you would just type in here instead of, rostered, you would just type backup or backups like this, right? That would work too. But generally, in my experience, I just type all. I just ping everybody. And there's actually a potential chance that I'm just going to take that whole option completely out, and it's just ping roster message, and it just pings everybody who's on there, and you're good to go. So ping all, and then whatever you want to say, whatever your message is, right? So in this case, we're about to reset the roster, right? So we were discussing, Thursdays came around, you ran the run's over, you're getting ready to reset it because this is an open thing that people can sign up for every week, right? Hey all, I'm resetting the roster now. Now you got to do this before you reset the roster, because if you do this ping roster and there's nobody on the roster, then there's nobody that's going to get pinged, right? It's not going to remember who was on here. Once you clear it, that's it. You've cashed out this thing and there's nothing going on. So, hey all, I'm resetting the roster now. If you'd like to join us next week, please react to sign yourself back up. Now, this can be any message. I'm just whatever. Sign yourself back up. Now I may whatever, add more information, whatever the case may be. But this is how the ping command works, right? So we pinged the roster. I'm the only one on the roster. This is the message, right? And I got pinged because in the initial command launch, that pings anybody who's tagged, right? So this embed's not tagging them specifically, but they're going to get a ping and it's going to say, hey, this channel has a notification for you. And then they'll see this here and read it, hopefully. And they'll see, okay, this roster has been reset, right? Now, I got to remember to actually reset it after I've notified them that I was doing that, right? So waste, basket, click it, boom, reset. So now all the people that are pinged here were on the roster before. They can see the empty roster. They can react. They can sign themselves back up. So that's the ping command. The ping command is going to be used again later. I'll show you how to use it for rostering. We'll go over it with the templates for the manual stuff. If you launch this open roster and you're using it for a progression group, or you want to assign, I'll just go over it now. Forget it. Let's say you want to go over melee positions or off tank, main tank, 2 main tanks for VCR, whatever the case may be, right? So you want these positions to be lanes or whatever. This roster doesn't support that. So what we did was we launched a template, right? And it's going to give you a few options here. These are some backup roles if you're manually assigning them, whatever. Most of the time what I do is I just copy this portion right here. And description can be copied in there as well. It won't take the bold print, whatever. So we delete this message, right? And then we do ping roster. And it doesn't have to be a ping roster. You can even just do this, right? So the bold comes from, this is how you make a bold roster, right? And let's say you just want to do MT and you want to tag whoever the person is, right? And, H1 or let's say GH, group healer, right? That can be this Mr. Pierce, right? And M1, whatever, et cetera, R1, right? Okay, boom. So you're creating this, right? You're setting your positions depending on what you're in. Kind's Aegis has, or Aegis, sorry, has the M1 through 4, R1 through 4. VCR has like Orb Slayers, NDK, whatever information you want in here, right? Once the roster is full, you're getting ready to group. Maybe you'll go down here and you'll say grouping in 15 minutes. Maybe this is a half an hour before the roster launches. You can do the invite command, right, for in-game X or VSS, whatever you've set your command to, right? Boom, you send this. Okay, now this is just a message, okay? But what I like to do is I like to not even send that. Right? So I like to take this, right? I like to create it, just like I did, just in case I do accidentally send it. And then what I do is I turn this into a ping roster, right? So exclamation point ping roster. Copy the roster ID. All. And then whatever message that I may want to send, but just like this. Boom, there's the roster, right? So now it's in here. It's smaller, it's cleaner, it's not all highlighted and stuff. They got pinged. So I guess I accidentally deleted the main tank emoji when I copy pasted it. My bad. But yeah, that's the gist of it, right? So you put your roster in, you create it, grouping in 15 minutes. Here's the invite string, and any other information that you kind of want to add in there, right? So you can address this. You can say, hey guys, I tagged you guys, take a look at the locations, whatever. It'll be the most recent message in the thing unless people are sending stuff, but they won't have to scroll all the way up to the roster. Let's say a bunch of people were talking or chatting, whatever the case, but the roster's full and you want this to pop up, just a couple minutes before the roster. You put this in there and then boom, it's right there. The lanes, assignments, and all. So instead of you having to read all the X ups in the chat, everybody can just X up. You can then vet the people that, if you want to remove them from the roster, we're going to go over that next. You can do that, change their positions, whatever the case. You have full control over this roster. So one of the next commands here, I call it updateraider. It has a few other options as well, which are new raider, remove raider, add raider, but updateraider works as all of the above. So the updateraider command, right, it's also going to require you to copy the ID, right? Just like we've been doing. So we put that in here, right? Update raider, and then you tag the person that you're updating, right? So in this case, I'm the only person on the roster. Now, if I don't put any other information in here whatsoever, it's going to remove me. It's going to act like remove raider. It's going to take the person off the roster, right? Boom. Update raider. Now, I'm getting pinged. See that? And it says, I have been manually removed from the roster. If I feel this was an error, please privately contact. So this is me, because I'm the person that removed them, right? This is the raider, which happens to be me again. And this is the roster I was removed from. It's a link right to the roster, right? Boom. That way, this person knows that they've been taken off the roster, and if they've got any complaints about it or whatever the case may be, they can contact you and figure out why or what happened, right? So this is expected that they're going to DM you, but chances are they're just going to respond right away. What happened? Blah, blah, blah. They're going to put it in the chat because that's just how people are. So that's the remove. Now, the same command, update raider, works to add raiders as well, right? So update raider, add, it's Mr. Pierce, right, to the DPS bot. There I am, back on the DPS. Now, this same one, update raider, also works to move somebody. So, it's Mr. Pierce we just discussed, and instead of asking him go there and take off your role and then add your role, whatever, we talked about it. You're going to switch from DPS to healer because we only had one healer and 2 tanks, and we need support, and it's easier to find DPS. Whatever, happens all the time. Somebody has multiple tunes, they volunteer to take up a support role. So we update raider, right? Message ID again, as usual. We tag the raider. Right? It's Mr. Pierce. And we're going to move It's Mr. Pierce to the tank spot. Right? Boom. I got another message that my signup has either been changed to tank or I've been manually added to the roster as tank. Right? Click on the roster. What roster? Boom. There I am. I'm tank. I was DPS. Now I'm tank. Now you'll notice I don't have a reaction down here because I didn't sign myself up. This whole time I was removed from the roster and then my reaction was taken away by the bot. And then I was added to the roster, and then I was moved on the roster, right? So I don't have a reaction. But I don't want to be tank. I don't know why I was put here as a tank. I didn't agree to being tank. I'm not going to run this run as a tank. I simply sign myself up as tank, take it away. Now I'm no longer a tank. There's still DPS spots available. I sign myself back up as DPS. Raid lead may or may not have a problem with that. You then discuss, hey, you are DPS, I moved you to tank, I don't need you, whatever the case may be. Maybe that person just doesn't raid, whatever. You remove them again. You handle that as it comes. But that is how update raider works. Update raider removes, adds, and moves a raider as you need to for whatever reasons are coming up. Now, one of the important things to remember here is they always get pinged, so you don't have to worry about contacting them directly anytime you've done this, anytime you've added them manually or removed them, whatever the case may be. They get this pop-up, they get tagged, and they get this notification. It's their responsibility to follow up with this. That's it for the update raider portion of this. So we went over the ping roster, we went over launching the roster, we went over the template of the roster, we went up to the update the raiders. Now, one of the other important things is cleared. So let's say we ran this, right? This roster was full, and we cleared the run. So we right-click, we copy ID. I think I already had a copy, whatever. And we do exclamation point cleared. This is the thing, the roster ID, right? And then we tag a role. Now, this is a VSS roster, right? Or a Sunspire roster. So we would generally tag VSS. Let's say we accidentally hit VKA, and we are about to assign this clear tag, right? We get this error. This command can only assign roles that correlate with the trial Sunspire, as displayed on the roster. What roster? Boom. Roster. Okay, cool. Now, you'll notice here down at the bottom, it also says the role name must contain VSS, not case sensitive or case sensitive. So, in a guild that has clear tags that are spelling out Sunspire, it probably won't work. Or it won't work, I should say. So, any form of VSS, case sensitive or not, is going to or I don't know what these stars are right here. I'll have to double check into that. I guess I think I have Sunspire written in here, some kind of coding error. It should work as long as the word Sunspire is in there as well. But yeah, whatever, irrelevant. I'll look into that later. But here, if we do exclamation point cleared, we do the ID, and then we do at VSS, right? Every raider that's on the roster, right? Any raider that's on the roster, not the backup roles, anybody on the roster gets the tag. Now, what's important to remember here is two very important things. The first very important thing is that every raider that's on here gets it. So if somebody no-showed, you need to manually remove them from the roster before you launch it, or remove their tag after it's been given if you've done it by mistake. You don't want their name to show up in here because you can't edit this, and it's going to give you a full list, and if you can avoid it, fix that in advance. But you should generally remove people off the roster before you even start anyway. So remember that every person that's on this roster right here gets the clear tag. Now, that being said, they also get the clear tag. So if, for example, in Imp Gaming, we have roles right here, right? So we have these clear roles. And if you get like Asylum hard mode, you don't have like Vet Asylum, you don't have like the plus Falms, plus Lotus, whatever the case may be, right? So if I already have Asylum hard mode and I just ran a Vet Asylum and somebody uses the clear tag, I'm going to get this role. It's not necessarily a problem, but it could potentially cause people to get like an abundance of extra roles. You know what I mean? So you just want to try to use that at your own discretion. You can assign it and then maybe just check. You can just click right here, right? And just see if you've given like Halls of Fabrication, for example, and then just hit the X, take the roll away right afterwards. That's pretty easy to do as well. So what we have here, like see these black rolls, these are ones that clears that were not achieved in the guild, and then these are all the clears that were achieved in the guild. So anytime you use that clear tag, just be aware that you might have people in there that have higher tags, and to keep it clean, just kind of go through and click on them, and if you've double assigned, just take away the new assigned role, and it's that easy. Or the alternative is, again, to just not even really use that. So one of the other commands that I wasn't actually going to go over, but just for the sake of this whole cleared thing, we have another command called !giverole, and this allows you to tag as many users as you want, and give them a role. So at VSS, and you can just get, that's any role, like as long as you have permission to use it. So I think you have to have the ability to give roles, whatever that is, manage messages, or I forget. But yeah, as long as you have permission to assign roles, you can use that command, and you can do, like I said, multiple users, as many users as you want, are in that give role command. I wanted to just try this cleared, because I do have I just wanted to see if this works, because it's not the VSS abbreviation. So yes, it does work. So that little double star thing is just an error encode as far as getting something to show up in this particular error message. But I believe that what that was saying was Veteran Sunspire of any cases. So it had to contain either VSS or Sunspire, I believe is what it was trying to say there, Sunspire. So I'll double check on that error there. But that's what it is. It has to contain the word Sunspire or the abbreviation of whatever trial is being hosted. Whatever is up here is basically what needs to be seen in the clear tag, VSS or Veteran Sunspire. That goes over update raider, roster, template. Okay, so now the next command is the last one that's directly related to rosters, and this is called the reset command. Now, this command will work as reset roster, it will work as roster reset, update roster, or just update by itself, or reset by itself. So what this does is this allows you to change the type of roster it is, what you're running, Vet Sunspire, can be changed to VKA, Vet Cloud Rest, whatever the case may be. It'll also allow you to change the date, the time, the description. Now, one important thing to remember is that you don't have to change all of this data, but you have to change all preceding data to whatever it is that you're trying to update. So if you're trying to update the description, you do have to re-enter all this stuff. This command works the same as the roster command. So remember, roster is !roster, space, trial that you want to do, space, the day or date that you want to do. So remember, we went over the date format. This is whatever your guild's format is for dates. The time, right? So 9 to 11. p.m. And we also went over that the time zone shows up there once you've set the time zone. So that's exclamation point set time zone. And then we set it here. So the time zone has been changed to Eastern. And then we checked it with exclamation point time zone. So time zone is going to show up. And then we wanted this is a test description, right? So this is the roster command. This is essentially what we've used to launch the roster. Now, we want to change information on there, right? So we're going to do exclamation point update, or update roster, or reset roster, or roster reset, whatever. They all work. But remember, in order to know what roster we're resetting, we need the ID, right? The message ID. So update, and I got to spell it right. I didn't spell it right. So I actually usually use reset just by habit. But to make it simpler, I've added these other parameters because some people, whatever you are kind of thinking would be what the command is typically what the command's going to be. Update, message ID. This is the only required parameter when you use this command. You have to update the trial. So it's either going to be VSS, it's going to be you're switching it to a VKA, whatever the case may be. And anything that you don't include after that stays the same. So if you only want to change VSS, right? You want to make it a VKA. This is all you need, right? Boom, VKA. Now, anybody who's rostered is going to get a notification that you've changed the roster. They need to read the details to see what you've changed it to. They don't want to run a VKA, so they're going to -X. Boom. They do want to run a VKA, but they don't want to be healer. They want to be DPS. Boom. Cool. Now they're good to go. But the dates stay the same. The time stayed the same. The description stayed the same. Maybe you didn't have anything in the description that was related to the fact that it was a VSS and you're switching to a VKA, and your original description is still completely relevant. So you've gone ahead and you've just left that alone. But let's just say you do want to change something. Maybe you don't want to change it from VKA or VSS. So you do reset, message ID. It was originally VSS, so we're going to stick with that, VSS. Right? But it's not on Thursdays and Saturdays anymore. Let's say you want to change it to Thursdays only. Or maybe it's a one-day roster and you just want to put a date in, whatever. And maybe you want to change the time, right? And you can put the same time in, you can change the time. But ultimately what you're trying to do here is you're trying to get to the description. So if all things are the same and you don't, you're being lazy, whatever, you Control-C, copy, Control-V, paste, Control-C. Remember, we don't need to take the time zone. That's all going to stay there. So we're going to Control-V, space, and then let's say the description is mostly going to be the same, or it's a long description, whatever the case may be, but you wanted to add a couple things or whatever, so you can just paste it in there exactly how you had it. And then, we are going to add, this is a open roster. Boom. Send it. We go back. We see this is an open roster. We've added this information in here. All this information stayed the same. We're back to VSS again, and we're all good. And everybody that was on the roster got pinged again because we've made a change, and we click roster. So reset roster or reset only requires that you put the trial in, right? It's assuming that at a bare minimum, if you're doing this, you are changing something, and the first parameter is, do you want to change the trial? So you put the same trial in, you get to the date, you want to change the date. And remember, we can negate anything after. We can stop at any point, so we don't have to go all the way through. Reset. Oops, I changed my copy-paste. So copy ID. Reset. Copy ID, right? VSS, and I'm just changing the dates this time to Wednesdays. All the information after this point stays the same to whatever's on the roster. Wednesdays, right here. All other information the same. Everybody on the roster is pinged again. Roster. Boom. That is it for the rosters. Anything else beyond this? I'm going to be doing additional tutorial videos. There's a few commands that I have to check out. I don't know if there's an update to the code or what the case may be, but just for the sake of simplicity, we're going to leave these into little short videos for each thing. The roster command is the largest section, and it's the most universal across all the guilds that this bot may be in. in the future, we could expect to go over some other basic commands, which if you have the bot, you are able to see in the help menu what other commands are available to other guilds. That there's some stuff that's available in Imp Gaming that aren't available out to the public, but stuff like this CP allocation is a public command. Links to helpful add-ons, OD support icons. You click the link, it's going to take you. Hold up, would you like to take this link? And it's going to take you right to ESO UI, where you can download these and drag them right into your add-ons folder. And then you'll have that. Coming soon, I'm working on some, if you check the information on Jorvolds, it'll tell you what trials it's generally used on, and it's usually paired with what other sets. You can see like Olo, the name, it'll say Vestment of Olo Socios is coming soon here. It's just copy-paste code, basically. I haven't made my way down there yet, but it's just exclamation point data right here, and then these are the parameters for the sets that'll be included in that. It won't be every set in the game, it'll just be sets that are required in either Chaos or Imp Gaming, or recommended. Any sets that ever appear up here will be available with that same. So if you see PA here and you want information on PA, whatever acronym is used here is also going to be used here. I believe the only one I may have changed is defiled. I think is DD if when it appears up here, but it's defiled down here. I might change that back, because now that I think about it, that's just confusing. But yeah, so we've gone over everything. We've gone over using the template. We've gone over posting the template using pingroster. We've gone over the error codes. We've gone over again, this is a different command, exclamation point gear. We'll go over that in another video. I'll probably go over a bunch of the small commands in one video instead of just doing a video for each individual command. Again, error codes, how to interpret them, how to read them. We went over required. So this is, these brackets represent required. And yeah, that's pretty much the entire thing. So thank you for following along. Hopefully you guys all learned something from this. And yeah, if you like what you see, go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, notifications, the whole 9 yards. I haven't been posting a whole lot of videos, but I'm hoping to get into some kind of routine at some point. So thank you.